Well, how's it going, everyone? And welcome to the Neurodivergent Ninja channel. And I was planning on doing the next episode of the Ninja Tour and was doing a bit of research for it. But then something on social media caught my eye that got me thinking a bit, got me actually quite frustrated with basically the low level of IQ in some people in reading stats. You know how it is sometimes that, you can read anything into a statistic. You know, um, someone who was keeps being in a difficult position but then seems to get out of it. You could read that as, oh, they keep getting themselves in a difficult position. Or you could read it as, what great resilience, they're getting themselves out of it. Well, this was what got on my nerves when checking out social media. Let me show you what it was that got on my nerves. It was this. Well, this was one of two. And the second one was a response to this tweet. Is it a tweet or an X? What is a post on on X nowadays? Is it still a tweet? An exit? Let me know in the comments. But it was this. So it came from Autosport. F1 has witnessed a dramatic drop in social media numbers off the back of Red Bull's domination, and new data has revealed. BuzzRadar data suggests that mentions of F1 are down 70.2% in the first 5 months of 2023 compared to 2022. Are you following F1 less this year? Now, this is purely factual. Brilliant, right? But the main response, gave over a clear impression as to who felt targeted by this post. Because the response came from Red Bull Power Units. And they came up with this post. Well, the last time Hamilton won a championship was in 2020. Check the graph since then. Max Verstappen domination is reviving this sport. Right. Let's start pulling these apart. Now, people know that I do have bias in this, in that I do like Hamilton and I do struggle with Verstappen, but I'm just going to pull these apart and look into them factually, because there are things that both accounts are missing out that doesn't that shows that this is not telling the full picture. So let's start off with the original, yeah? Let's start off with the original, which was this one. The F1 has witnessed a dramatic drop in social media numbers. Now, I know Red Bull responded. I don't know if they felt triggered by it, but this is not necessarily a Red Bull problem. The reason why this sort of thing happens is simply when one team is constantly winning, right? I'm just trying to re-angle the camera. Sorry about this, guys. Yeah, it's not just a Red Bull problem. We would have had probably a similar sort of statistics when in 2020, 2019, when Mercedes were absolutely bossing it between the two, especially in those times when Bottas, I'm sorry, mate, you were a wingman. You, it's going to happen. When you almost know who the winner's going to be 5 races into the season, the social media numbers are going to drop. Now, it's actually quite nice to see that the social media figures are still pretty incredible. I mean, that's still 1.83 million mentions, 489 thousand new followers, and the social reach, I don't know what social reach means, but 22 billion. They're still pretty high numbers, which shows that Formula One is still in a strong place. So, whilst yes, it's a drop because there is one team that's leading, it's not the worst thing in the world. There's number one. That's the less raging GC one. Right, now to take out this one, because this one really got my goat. So, what Red Bull Power Unit account is trying to say is that when Lewis Hamilton was dominating in 2020, the money that was being brought in, because I think this is what it's talking about, is the money that Formula One was bringing in, was at nearly zero in 2020. Now Max Verstappen's come in; it's at its highest level ever. Right, three things to talk about here. Firstly, I'm trying to think of the order in which to do this, to be quite honest, because I want to make sure it's right. So let's take out the 2021. Let's think about the 2019 onwards, right? And I suppose the best way of putting it is what this is showing is that Drive to Survive, the way that Formula One is being promoted, is doing good for the sport. You can see it was increasing in 2019 when Max Verstappen wasn't actually properly on the scene. And that is all down to the way it's being promoted. TV direction aside, it is actually not a bad place. And it was in a decent spot. So actually, this is just to show how strong Formula One is. That actually is in a healthy position. People are enjoying it. People want to spend the money on it. People want to invest in it. Great stuff. That's number one. Now let's talk about 2021. I know I'm going around the 2020 stuff, but bear with me. Max Verstappen wouldn't have had the pull that he did if 2021 did not happen. You see, if we'd have gone straight from Lewis Hamilton wins everything to Max Verstappen wins everything, then it'll just be that, like that meme. It's just under new management. There wouldn't be the enjoyment. In fact, there will be the, oh yes, we got a different winner, but we're still not getting exciting races. 2021 had a huge impact on it. I mean, you look at the way that Twitter blew up when it came to the Verstappen fans, the Lewis Hamilton fan club. Like, it got the engagement going. People were going crazy with comments, sometimes overboard, but they were going crazy with comments. Right, 2020. And then there's one other thing to mention on this. Now, could there be another reason why the money had such a drop in 2020? You know, some sort of like world events, something that might have meant that everyone was struggling to spend money in areas and everyone was struggling to spend money in promoting, and it was a difficulty for. Oh, yeah, there was a freaking pandemic going on. That's why it hit near zero in March 2020, which is what this graph shows, and why the steady increase was people starting to come back. People forget that there was still a talking point when it came to the pandemic, even in 2021. That was how it was. And so 2020, 2021, we were still recovering in that sense. Now, the pandemic is still a thing, COVID is still a thing, but in 2020 and 2021, that was when it was at its most lethal. And that was when we were doing less travelling. People forget, again, at the start of 2021, I think there was still no fans that were allowed in the stands. So, of course, it was going to have a hit. And actually, what it really shows is it was quite encouraging to see it take a good recovery by the time that 2021 was ending, thanks to an entertaining and thrilling title fight. Now, why does it rise in 2022? Well, maybe because the rules changed. It completely spun the order around. Mercedes was struggling, yes, but Ferrari had started coming back. Red Bull had started coming back. It was getting exciting. It was again, we were starting to get a title fight. It was getting exciting. And when there were funny moments that happened when Ferrari were messing up, guess what? There would have been merchandise being sold of that. F1 would have made money. And everyone would have tuned in to see what would Ferrari mess up next. Again, the struggle. Now, the last thing I want to point out from this graph is something which I actually ended up commenting on. I don't know if you guys know this, but Formula One drivers on their own have no impact on this, no impact on the financial graph. For someone to think that Lewis Hamilton single-handedly crashed the F1 economy just by dominating a Formula One season is ludicrous. But Formula One drivers are there for the sport. Do you want to know what makes the money? Is when things are competitive. One driver on their own cannot decide how competitive the season is. So here's the question: why is it still looking pretty decent in 2023? Well, okay, it might be a foregone conclusion as to who wins the race, but it's still exciting racing for the rest of the positions. It's still exciting to see who finishes second. In fact, it very much showed in Singapore that if Max Verstappen struggles, it's actually quite an exciting fight for the lead. That Sergio Perez is amongst the contenders, but he's in no way clear on his own. So financially, of course, it's going to do well because the people that love Ferrari are still interested in it. The people that love Mercedes are still interested in it. The people that love McLaren are still interested in it. The people that love Aston Martin are still interested in it. The people that love Fernando Alonso are still interested in it. The people that love Leclerc are still interested in it. The people that love the smooth operator are still interested in it. The people that love Lewis Hamilton, the list goes on. This is not down to Max Verstappen. This is not down to Lewis Hamilton. This is down to the fact that now every driver is having an impact. And there's one other group I want to talk about as well that would have had an impact on this. YouTubers. Just think about this for a second. That the leading podcast in a lot of nations in this world is Formula One, the P1 podcast. Now, that has a great impact on the finances because if the podcasts are talking about it regularly and the YouTubers are talking about it regularly and the Twitch streamers are talking about it regularly, the money's going up. So that's the rant over, but there is a positive in this. How I cannot state how much I am loving this. You know, I remember when I was growing up as a kid watching Formula One, which I think the first season was 2003 when I was 10, enjoying the Juan Pablo Montoyas and the Kimi Raikkonens and obviously the Michael Schumachers and the Rubens Barrichellos. Like it was But in those times, no matter how much they tried to publicise it, Formula One still felt like quite a niche, quite a cult subject when it came to sports. It certainly felt like it was fifth or sixth on people's interests. It probably even behind golf. And now it's in the top three. Thanks to stuff like this. Thanks to this being made mainstream. Thanks to the finances going up. I cannot say how awesome it is to feel like I'm following a sport that people are finally getting on board with. This is not the vibe of, oh, I followed it before it was cool. I'm just grateful that people are starting to see the excitement of it because it was always cool. It was always a cool sport, but now people are starting to see it. And for that reason, I adore it. F1, keep it up. To the F1 drivers, keep it up. To everyone talking about Formula One, myself included, keep it up because this is a great thing to see. Please continue to like and subscribe the video, and if you have any comments about anything I've said, then feel free to mention them. Take care.